number 18 Utah at number 5 Washington, 3:30 on Fox. And the storyline, at least for me, is, can Utah play the role of spoiler once again? Last year, USC, the only reason why they didn't make the college football playoff was Utah. They lost to Utah in the regular season. They lost to Utah in the Pac-12 championship game. Now the Pac-12's top playoff contender is Washington, who won't be eliminated by any means with a loss here, but it would significantly hurt the Pac-12's chances of having a college football playoff team if Utah pulls off this upset. So Utah can kind of play the role of spoiler again, Dalton, and maybe cannibalize the Pac-12 once again.
Yeah, they're certainly going to try, and they're always a threat because they're well coached and they play reasonably sound defense. The story for me, actually, and I wanted to see Washington going into USC manufacture offense in ways other than just dropping back and throwing jump balls to Odunze, right? Just chucking deep balls into too high coverages, and they found it. Obviously, a lot of teams find their running game against USC, but you have to love what Dylan Johnson did last week, giving them balance, 26 carries. 256 yards, 4 touchdowns, 91.4 rushing grade, best player on the field by far. Yep. Right. And I think very often what teams get caught up in is with Utah is they're one of arguably the most physical team between them and Oregon State, I would say, in the Pac-12. Right. And I think Washington isn't always the most comfortable in situations where kind of physicality can get to them. You look at even the Arizona State game. Arizona State, they don't do much else right, but they are physical, and they gave them a lot of problems. So I think adding that second dimension for Washington helps them a lot in this game because, Utah's a team. Their secondary is the best part of their team. I believe they're in the top 20 in coverage grade. Yeah, they keep things in front of them. You're not going to drop back and chuck the ball over Utah's heads. They're going to make, if nothing else, what Utah does that spooks a lot of teams is they make you work for it. But I think if Washington got an elite offensive line, if you get Dylan Johnson going again, because I really think in their best games, they've been under center, and Dylan Johnson's ran the ball well, and Michael Penix is the best play-action passer in the country. I think this gets forgotten because it's flashy and he makes the big throws against Oregon in big situations. But at their absolute best, run game, play action, if they need Penix to drop back and do that, cool, because he can absolutely do it. It'll be a first-round pick. But this is when they're at their best. And I think that's the matchup for me with a Utah team who, physical as they may be and they play with a lot of attitude, is 89th in the country in run defense grade. And honestly, the second one for me is Utah is not the same away from home. Right? Their 3 lowest graded games this year, both overall and on defense, are all 3 of their road games. Right? It's just not the same. It doesn't play the same outside of Utah. I'm curious if they can, even in a spoiler role, carry the physicality, carry that attitude away from the friendly confines there, because we know what Utah can do at home, which is why Oregon's win was so impressive. But on the road, that has not been the same team.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, it's a great point. It's not at Utah. And if it was at Utah, it'd be a much more dangerous game, in my opinion, but it's not. So, you mentioned it. The biggest matchup is simply Washington's passing attack against Utah's defense. I mean, Washington's passing game, you can make the argument, just top to bottom, might be the most deadly in college football. You see right there, they're 5th in the country in EPA per pass on offense. Utah, though, 11th in the country in EPA per pass allowed. So Utah's defense has done a really good job defending the pass this year, but man, this is a different animal. This is a different animal you're going up against in Washington. Michael Penix Jr., right now the Heisman favorite, according to DraftKings Sportsbook. They have the second highest graded receiving core in the country as well, with 2 projected first-round picks. Check out Trevor Sickles' mock draft at pff.com if you haven't already. 2 Washington receivers went in the first round of that mock draft in Rome Odunze and Jalen Polk. They both went in the first round. Huskies offensive line, 2.3% sack or hit rate allowed, so knockdown rate. That's the 3rd lowest in the country. And then you got Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb at head coach and offensive coordinator. They are brilliant, man. 2 of the best offensive minds in the sport. However, Utah has 2 of the best defensive minds in the sport in Kyle Whittingham and Morgan Scalley, their defensive coordinator. So it'll be kind of a chess match between those 2 coaching staffs, which I'm very, very excited to see. And then Jonah Ellis, man, we haven't even talked about him. He has 12 sacks this season. That's tied with Laiatu Latu for the most among Power 5 defenders this year. So I'm excited, man. I think it'll be a little bit of a chess match between Utah's defense and how well coached they are and Washington's offense with all the superstars they have and then also the superstar coaches they have as well.
Yeah, I think Utah needs to take some chances early to stay in this. The one thing with Penix, I think there's one thing you found that can get to him is if you blitz him. But if you don't blitz him, here's another one, best passer in the country. To make your Heisman case. If you don't blitz him, he is the best passer in the country. If you do blitz him, the grade drops down around 40th. So, he doesn't want to move. When he moves to throw. Right. And they have excellent top 10 pass protection, all that stuff. It's very hard to get to them. But I think Utah, the chess match would start for me, and they don't blitz much outside of their first game of the year against Florida. Not a high blitz rate, just above 30%. They need to take some gambles. Send 5, send 6, man to man, make him get rid of the ball. If even with Jonah Ellis, you have Washington's offensive line is really good. If you just send 4 and sit back, he's going to kill you. Yeah. He's going to tear you apart. They have to. For me, Utah's defensive game plan should have some risk-taking elements. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But you have to find a way to slow this down. They are not winning a shootout. Utah put up 34 on USC. I don't even know if that would be enough.
Yeah.
I don't know if 34 most of the time isn't enough to beat Washington. 42 wasn't enough for Caleb Williams to beat him. So they need to take some chances. They need to force the action. If they sit back and send 4 and try to play just quarters and keep it in front of them, Penix is perfectly content to pick them apart.
Yeah, absolutely. So ultimately, Dalton, who are you rolling with in this Pac-12 game?
I like Washington a lot in this game. I think I love the balance they found last week. Utah's got a ton of flaws offensively. I mean, if they're not running for 300 yards, their passing game for the most part is kind of dysfunctional. And in Pac-12 play, their secondary has kind of struggled their way through. I don't think this will be as bad as the Oregon game. What was that, 35-6, was it?
Yeah.
But I don't know that. I'm not sure it'll be too far off of that. I gotta be honest with you. I think Washington finding the balance. I think Utah on the road is not the same. I don't think it's the same animal. The two things they need to do to stay in this game are run for a ton of yards. They just run, Sione Vaki and the run game. Bryson Barnes running himself. They need to run like crazy. And they need to attack. They need to blitz on defense. And they have not shown that they're going to attack like that on defense. Now, maybe that'll change, like you said, game plan specific stuff. But I like Washington a lot in this game. I think that was a big momentum boost they got last week going into USC, running all over them. Penix did not carry them in that game. He had 260, 2 touchdowns, I think only 1 big-time throw. But I think they're better in the moments when Penix doesn't have to carry them. He can obviously do it, but you don't want him to do it for 60 minutes. And I think they have a really good opportunity here to capitalize on that balance. I'm going to take Washington 41-14.
Wow. Big win for Washington. That's great. I like that, man. I got Washington winning as well. I only got them winning by 10, though. I got 34-24. Final score. I think Washington's high-powered offense, man, is too much for practically anybody in the country. Even Utah, who has a really good defense, I just think it's too much for Utah to handle. So I don't think it'll be a blowout like you're suggesting, but I do think Washington's going to win this one by at least 2 scores.